I'm John Chapman. I'm really glad that you're here with us. In our first video, we talked about the three different parts of an offertory: the offertory statement, the offertory prayer, and then the receiving of the contributions. In this video, we'll talk about how to craft the offertory statement using a method of developing sermons called the Sermon in Four Movements, or the Sermon in Four Pages, and it was developed by Paul Scott Wilson. So we will be using this and applying it to the offertory, and it will be the offertory in four movements. We hope that you find this helpful in your offertory preparation. If you remember from our first video, we said that an offertory should be about 1 to 1 1/4 double-spaced type pages. So you won't have room for 4 pages of an offertory, but you will have room for 4 different movements. And here are Wilson's steps: trouble in the text, trouble in the world, resolution in the text, resolution in the world. We'll use those 4 steps to show you how to create an offertory statement. If your congregation uses the lectionary, which is a really great tool for scripture study that allows you to go through most of the books and stories of the Bible over the course of 3 years, then I'd recommend that you use the lectionary scripture in your offertory. Now, you won't have time to do an in-depth exegesis or interpretation on the scripture, but if the offertory follows the sermon and the preacher has done a good job exegeting or interpreting the text, then you won't have to do an in-depth interpretation yourself. You can tag on to that. So let's begin to construct the offertory statement based on the 4 steps: trouble in the text, trouble in the world, resolution in the text, resolution in the world. I'll begin by reading our scripture, and it's the scripture from the lectionary text from December 14th, 2008, and it's John chapter 1, verses 6 through 8 and 19 through 28, and I'll read it for you. I will not read this when I do the actual offertory, though, because it will probably already have been read in the service. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came to witness, to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. This is the testimony given by John when the Jews sent the priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny it, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And then they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" He answered, "No." Then they said to him, "Who are you? Let us have an answer for those who sent us. What do you say about yourself?" And he said, "I am the voice of the one crying out in the wilderness, 'Make straight the way of the Lord,' as the prophet Isaiah said." Now they had been sent from the Pharisees, and they asked him, "Why then are you baptizing if you are neither the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor the prophet?" John answered, "I baptize with water. Among you stands one whom you do not know, the one who is coming after me. I am not worthy to untie the thong of his sandal." This took place in Bethany, across the Jordan, where John was baptizing. When you preach, or when you do the offertory, or use scripture in worship, it's often helpful to have resources that help you know what the context of a scripture is, and possible interpretations. Commentaries can be really helpful for this. This is one of my favorite new ones. It's called Feasting on the Word. It's edited by Barbara Brown Taylor. She's a phenomenal preacher. This particular one has 4 different interpretations. Each column is a different interpretation. It covers all the lectionary scriptures for a given Sunday, and there are 4 of these volumes per lectionary year. Really good stuff. So if we look at our first step, trouble in the text, and we apply it to our scripture in John, it appears to me that the trouble happens between the conflict between the priests sent by the Pharisees and John. You see, the priests were the keepers of the religious and social orders of the times. They were the ones who ran things. They were the power brokers. And here's John out in the wilderness, and he's saying, "I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, and I am not the light, but I come to testify to the light." John is saying, hey, things are going to change. You might be in charge now, but there is one coming who is greater than I am. And that probably frightened him. And there was conflict there between John and the priests that were sent by the Pharisees. Today in our world, there is trouble in the world. Many of you probably have friends, or maybe you yourself have been let go from your job recently. There have been massive layoffs. And we all know that our investments, our savings have been almost slashed in half over the last year. Many people go without adequate health care in the United States. And in other parts of the world, like Zimbabwe, there is an economic genocide going on there that will lead to a humanitarian disaster. There are some places in our world where light just doesn't seem to shine. The resolution in this text comes when John says to the priests that have come, the one who is coming after me, the one who is coming after me, I am not even worthy to untie the thong of his sandal. Amidst the turmoil and the power struggles of our world, the light still shines. And sometimes we're called to be like John and to go into the wilderness and shine the light where it might not otherwise go. We can shine the light in our local communities where we live through contributions to our local mission ties. And we can shine the light into the far-flung places of our world through contributions to our world mission ties. So now I'll show you how to do the offertory statement based on those 4 principles and the work that we've done with this scripture. In our lectionary scripture for today, we find John being questioned by the scribes and the Pharisees as to why he is baptizing people. The scribes and the Pharisees are the temple and religious authorities of their day. They are the power brokers of religion. And the world of the Pharisees is one in which the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. It is a world in need of light. Our own world is facing unique challenges: environmental, humanitarian, economic, and others. The United States and other Western nations are in the midst of an economic crisis that is bringing stress to the dinner tables and bank accounts of our friends, our neighbors, and maybe even ourselves. In nations like Zimbabwe, inflation is out of control, and it's estimated that 65,000 people may die there in the coming months because of an outbreak of cholera that was caused by a leadership that created a structure that kept the poor poor and the rich rich. It is a world in need of light. The light is coming. John was not the light, but he came to testify to light. He even testified to light directly to those who wished to put the light out. That light was Jesus Christ, the light of the world. Through our contributions to our local mission ties, we can support the work of the church in our own communities and testify to light in the places where we live. Through our contributions to our world mission ties, we can testify to light and shine the light in the far-flung places of our world where we might not otherwise go. The world needs light, and the light is coming. So that's one example of how you can use the offertory in 4 movements and a scripture to construct the offertory statement. I'm John Chapper, and I hope that this has helped you in your offertory preparation.